All right. Welcome back to the Sober Broker Podcast. This is a show about recovery and discipline, faith, and rebuilding a meaningful life after addiction, incarceration, and destructive seasons. This isn't a place where we glorify the fall. It's where we honor the work that really comes after it. And today's guest is someone whose story reflects exactly what this podcast exists for. I'm joined by William Price, and he works for, or as a case manager here in Asheville, North Carolina. William grew up surrounded by addiction, spent years cycling through homelessness, jail, mental health facilities, battling heroin addictions, and today, rooted by the grace of God and through commitment to recovery, he's built a life rooted in faith, discipline, service, and stability. He's now 8 years into recovery and nearly 4 years fully sober. You're deeply involved in the church and the community and helping others, really walk this road that you once traveled yourself. And what stands out to me about you, Will, isn't just where you came from, it's the ownership that you've taken over your life and the daily disciplines that you practice and the belief that you can change and anyone can. I'm grateful for you and your willingness to be here, man, and sharing your story here today. I know that you wanted to get us started on prayer, so I'll let you kind of dive into that, okay?
All right. And just before I do that, good morning, everyone, and good morning, Patrick. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's an incredible honor. Of course, I'm about to open us up in prayer, but thank you so much for the wonderful intro. You did such a good job. Thank you so much for introducing me, man. And again, anyone who's watching, and my friend Patrick here, if you would, and you're willing, just join me in a little bit of an opening word of prayer so that I say what God would have me say here on this podcast this morning. Lord God in heaven, I just love you so much, and I thank you for everything that you do and everything that you are, Father God. Right now, I just thank you for my brother Patrick right here, Father God. Lord God, I thank you for the anointing that you put on him, this podcast that you called him to just produce and that brings a message of hope, Father God. Lord God, when it comes to the things that I got to say here this morning, Father, just hide me behind the cross and put me in the background as much as possible. I'll manipulate the flesh and I'll move the lips, Father God, but let your words and your vision just come out of my mouth, Lord God. Lord God, I love you so much and I thank you for everything, Father, and it's in your holy name, your perfect name, your highly exalted name, Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, brother.
You're so welcome.
All right. So, Will, what got you out here today? What made you want to do this?
So just in general, when it comes to doing podcasts, public speaking and stuff like that, I have gotten really involved in it over the past few years, especially since moving here in Asheville. For me, I always felt it inside of me, right? Like I always felt like I always had this knack for public speaking and for messaging and kind of explaining things to people. For so many years, especially during my addiction, I felt this even when I was younger, but even as a young adult, when I was struggling with alcohol and drugs, like I felt like I had this message inside of me, but I did not have any idea how to direct it. You know what I mean? I just kind of didn't have a good focus on how to be able to use it. But I've really gotten into it. God's really just put me in that position. And I believe the main thing he wants me to do is spread a message of hope. You know what I mean? Whenever I tell my story, I don't ever want to be bragging and be like, I might even misspeak and be like, I did this and I did that and I accomplished this. But really, when I share my story, the main thing I want everyone to hear and understand is that, and we'll go into my story so that it becomes more apparent, that if I can come from the situation that I came from, anybody can do it. All you got to do is apply yourself. You just really got to want it, surrender, and I'm going to go into all the things that I believe that it takes in order to recover. And that's not just from alcohol and drugs. I struggled from a whole, I had to have a complete and total mindset change. You know what I mean? Because all of my life, I felt like I was just like a victim. And I was a victim of a lot of traumatic things whenever I was growing up. But we can still be a victim without fully engaging and subscribing to the victim mindset. You know what I mean? If I wake up and tell myself that every single day in the mirror, it's going to affect the way that I approach everything, my job, relationships, different things like that. So I just know that whenever I got involved in recovery, that put me into the position where I was able to first tell my story and kind of use my lived experience. And I, especially like whenever I was like the speaker at a meeting or something like that, and people came up to me afterwards, or sometimes even weeks or a year later, I'll run into people and they'll be like, "Hey, I went and I seen you speak at that place and your story really helped me." Whenever I seen that you went through all those things, it really kind of lit up a light bulb in my head that I was able to do it too. Because sometimes now that I have some years sober and I do these things in the community and stuff like that, people can kind of see me like, maybe even in your case, some of the people that I've met through the church and Celebrate Recovery and stuff like that, they'll see me and it's kind of hard to even imagine that I used to be 120 pounds and walk around town with one shoe on. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah. Now you're curling 100.
Yeah, now I can eat my old body weight in a week on a bulk for sure. But I'll go into that, especially like the physical fitness part and how it helps my recovery. But just to get it
100%.
just to get it started off a little bit, I'll explain a little bit about my past and my background. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
dive in.
kind of the prequel, how we got here today. So for me, I was born into it was a difficult environment, especially with my parents and my home life and my family. My parents did not get along. They didn't have the happiest marriage. They would end up getting divorced in the end. There was a lot of alcohol and drugs involved in my environment whenever I was growing up. My parents argued back and forth with each other a lot. And yeah, it was just extremely difficult. And I acted out a lot in school. I wasn't a super mean guy, but I was kind of more of the class clown and I didn't respect authority. I always wanted to make a joke. I couldn't lock in. I couldn't take anything serious. So I was constantly, I mean, I'm talking about kindergarten to my entire life through grade school, sent home with notes from the teacher, constantly being suspended for different things like that. And for me, my mom, she was addicted to drugs and in and out of my life a lot whenever I was growing up. So for me, it wasn't a surprise if she was to like disappear for 6 or 9 months. You know what I mean? And then kind of like show back up again. And she'd be in great shape and stuff like that. And then, maybe that would last for a year or two. And then maybe she would disappear again and fall off the wagon. You got to understand now, I 100% understand what she was going through, have like total empathy and in her life, I was able to be there for her during her addiction and stuff like that. But Patrick, when I was only 13 years old, I had no clue what was going on, right? And I think one of the most difficult parts for me is that, or one of the things that kind of like messed with my psyche the most is that even though as a child you don't know what's going on, if these things keep happening over and over again, it becomes very normalized as if like this is what's supposed to be happening. And I think that kind of affected me, especially whenever I, started gaining more autonomy, responsibility for myself, especially when I got 16 years old and I'm starting to drive around. If I was to get into trouble or something like that, or get into like these difficult situations, whenever I seen my upbringing, whenever I was growing up from like the examples that I had in my life, I was just like, this is a part of life, right? So one good example, whenever I was younger, and I got my first DUI whenever I was probably 17 or 18 years old for drinking and driving. And whenever I got that DUI, I was just like, this is a part of life. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of people drinking and driving and also get arrested and locked up for this kind of thing. To me, it seemed like this is just a part of growing up. It happens to everybody.
It's another notch in the belt.
Yeah, like this is just one of those things you got to go through to become a man. I mean, I literally thought that this was something that would just happen to every adult. And in my case, like I said, I didn't have any knowledge on recovery or alcohol and drug addiction, but I didn't even notice how much of a red flag it is to get a DUI and lose your license to that DUI and then get them back after doing everything you're supposed to do, all before you're even 21 years old, right?
Hmm.
I acquired my DUI, lost my license, got them back. I wasn't even able to buy alcohol legally by the time I got my license back from my first DUI. And today, because and you mentioned a little bit, I'm a case manager now and an alcohol and drug counselor, and I work in recovery. I would say this is probably a red flag. You know what I mean? This is going to raise your score on some of those screening tools that we do to kind of judge the severity of your
Yeah.
addiction. I'd
Yeah.
have been like, yeah, this is a red flag. Back then, I just had absolutely no idea, right? And for me, I was growing up, man, and I had a very close friend of mine in high school. You know, he was a great guy. His name was Josh. I'd go and pick him up every single day from school. You know what I mean? We ride to school together. At the end of the day, I would take him back home, and that's just how I did it. You know, me and him were best friends. One day, you know, you're in high school. Well, probably like 16 or 17 years old, and we get in an argument over a girl. Totally normal thing to happen in high school. Um, and I always loved the guy. And in my mind, especially at that age, I was like, one day we'll make up and we'll be friends again. But you know what I mean? I'm young, I'm angsty. You know what I mean? I'm like, we're gonna argue today. We're gonna do our fight and we're gonna let this thing go out. Because as a kid, you think that you're invincible and you always have tomorrow, right? I always have time to fix my mistakes. And 2 weeks into our argument, so I'm not taking him to and from school during the argument. So he walks home from school every single day. And probably 2 weeks into our argument, he would end up getting hit by a train whenever he was crossing over a bridge to get home. And for many years, you know, I struggled with blaming myself for that, right? I felt like if he was in the car with me that day, that he wouldn't, you know what I mean? Especially at that age, you start thinking all like existentially, like, what could I have done and stuff like that. This is like my first traumatic experience, the first time I've ever lost a peer. You know what I mean? Someone in my life that passed away that was the same age as me. And I think they call it survivor's guilt, right? So I had that survivor's guilt, like, why him, not me? I had that blame, that shame of feeling like I could have done something about it if I would have been, if I'd have known more, been smarter, if I'd have approached the situation differently. Shortly after that, that's where I would actually end up drinking and doing other, like, forms of, I guess, doing other, like, lighter drugs that are not as immediately dangerous, like marijuana and stuff like that. We're drinking on the weekends, partying, doing high school type things. But that traumatic event really pushed me over the edge because in my upbringing, especially with my parents, I was, like, really anti alcohol and drugs. You know what I mean? I seen what's going on in their life. I was younger and I was like, "I'll never do that." You know what I mean? I was like, "Never in a million years would you catch me in these kind of situations." I used to do things like I would steal my parents' cigarettes. Stay with me now. And I'm taking their cigarettes out of the pack, I break them all in half, and I throw them out in the woods. Because I think that I can save my parents from their addiction if I take their stuff and destroy
Yeah.
it.
Just get rid of it.
And, you gotta understand this is 1990, so they got another pack of cigarettes for 3 or $4, and all I did was get in trouble, right?
Had a whole carton in the bedroom.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Um, so that's and that's just my mindset, like, I was so against, like, things that were addictive because I seen what it could do to people, but, you know, I was kinda predisposed to that, and I also had, like, a lot of trauma growing up, so I was, like, looking for a way to kinda treat that pain, and especially when I had that one traumatic event with my friend who passed away, you know, it just kinda drove me over the edge, and it was the perfect storm because I was, like, 16, 17 years old, I got my own car, I just had gotten it, uh you know, people are going to parties and stuff like that. I'm starting to get invited and things like that. So I just kind of like fell into it. I remember that uh the first time I really got into partying, it was like spring break, and I agreed with all my friends because they knew I was like anti-alcohol and drugs. I said, I'll party with y'all and I'll drink and we'll have fun during spring break. And after this, I'll never do it again, Patrick. And what do you think I did after spring break?
Parted.
It was on every single day. Like, it didn't make any sense. Went from this side of the fence over here, and I was just, like, totally, fully, and 100% committed to, living that lifestyle. And, I was doing things, like I said, I just didn't know anything about recovery or addiction, so I would I don't even have my after 9s probably, you know, I'm not even supposed to drive after 9 with my car. I'm going out and I'm drinking on school nights at one of my friends' houses where his parents are out of town all the time. I'm coming back at night, 10 or 11 PM. I'm living with my grandmother at this time. Sweet lady, does everything she can to help me, but she's older. She can't control me. She's already asleep by 8 p.m. She doesn't know when I'm coming in and stuff like that. And even after I don't even have my after nines. I'm drinking and driving every night. I literally just started drinking, just started driving. And I'm coming in at night. And just to really put myself down, I'm going into the medicine cabinet and swigging huge mouthfuls of NyQuil on top of all that. Today, I would say this is a red flag, right? And back then,
I'd say so.
it's just kind of the lifestyle that I grew up in. I had no idea that that was what was going on with me, right? Man, and honestly, it just progresses after that. And what I tell a lot of people in my job, in my work, and we go over in different groups and stuff like that, if we were to try alcohol and drugs, and the first time I ever got drunk, Patrick, if I'd have got a DUI that night, maybe I would have stopped. You know what I mean? If the first time I ever used cocaine, I got locked up that night, maybe I coulda got stopped earlier. But a lot of times, addiction is very progressive. You know what I mean? A lot of times we have a lot of fun at first, and then there's like and then you have a close call, and then you get, like, into a little bit of trouble, but you get out of it, and then you get to go with your friends and kinda laugh at how you almost got caught and stuff like that, and it's so gradual and slow. That's how you end up in that addiction pit, because if I just fell in there one day on day 1, I'd have been like, "Get me out of here. I'm never going back," right?
Yeah, you kind of have like the shock and awe of it. And you're like, what the heck is going on? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and that's definitely how it worked for me, because, like I said, I had a lot of fun. You're younger, you think you're invincible, you know what I mean? The consequences of my actions, you know what I mean? They came in at, like, the perfect spots to where I could, like, justify it and say, like, "Well, this isn't so bad." And, sometimes things go wrong. Uh, but it probably won't happen again, or it's not gonna get any worse from here, right? For me, I used to play sports a lot. I was playing soccer at a pretty high level. So before I was even 18 years old, I think I had had 2 surgeries on my knees. I had had appendectomy whenever I was young, so they had removed my appendix. I got in a big fight in a bad neighborhood where a guy ran up behind me and hit me with brass knuckles. So whenever I was, so totally, like, broke my jaw here and here.
Yeah.
And
Brass knuckles are no joke, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So for 6 weeks straight, I had to talk like this through my teeth, and they had my jaw wired shut. The teachers made fun of me because I talked so much in class, and they were like, "Wow, we finally shut him up," and stuff like that.
Teachers made fun of you. Wow.
But if you understood
Good
me,
encouragement.
yeah, I mean, that's just the kind of relationship I had with them. They weren't abusive or out of line or
Okay.
anything.
All
I
right.
was always the one that was out of line, and you know what I mean? So they kinda understood how they were allowed to play with me and joke and stuff like that. I wasn't,
I
like,
gotcha.
super sensitive about it or anything like that. But whenever I was in those situations, what I found was, like, in my younger life, I was getting prescribed a lot of pain medication. And if you know anything about, like, the macroeconomics of, like, the opiate or the opioid crisis, it's like before 2012, they were prescribing these things more, for lack of a clinical term, willy-nilly, right? So, like, you could easily get prescriptions of pain medication, multiple refills without even seeing your primary doctor. Like, they would just give you 3 refills straight from the hospital. A doctor that never knew you before in your life, didn't know your past, wasn't ever gonna see you again, uh, take 1, 2, 3 of these a day, and here's 3 refills. That's just how they used to run it, because they didn't know, like, the situation that they were gonna create. It didn't happen until 2012 or 2014 when the government started implementing policies where they kinda pulled back on that. So whenever I was younger, I got prescribed a lot of these pain medications and stuff. And I remember I figured out I was supposed to take, like, maybe 1 every something, something hours, who knows, whatever. But I figured out one day, if I take 3 of these at the same time, I can feel pretty good all day at school, right? I felt like I was in Wonderland, and I still remember it. I probably did that for, like, a week or 2, and I can remember the day, like, just so clearly. There was one day I went to school, I took my 3, and they wore off at lunchtime. And usually they got me all the way through the day. And I remember sneaking out of school to my car so that I could take 3 more in order to get that same effect. And just like that, one day, my usage doubled. what we call a red flag, right? Had no idea at the time, right? I got no clue yet, but I'm learning slowly. So that would end up being like my main drug of choice. I was really addicted to opiates and opioids, different kind of medications like that. Like I said, whenever it got to 2012, 2014, the government they really, I would say, overreacted because they seen the effects that opiates were having on people. So, like, you got to think of it like this. They like very quickly pulled the rug. You know what I mean? And they pull the rug so hard, like whoever's standing on the rug just slips down and falls. And this is what kind of ignited things like heroin. You know what I mean? People had to find something because overnight, everybody's like severely addicted to these things. It physically hurts to withdraw from pain medication. You get sick in all kind of different ways. It's horrible, right? It's like basically the flu, gives you horrible stomach and digestive problems, messes with your psyche really bad. If you have any kind of like chronic pain or something like that, it gets magnified whenever you're off the medication. So like all of a sudden people can't get them anymore. They've tripled in price and there's less of them out there. And people got to find a way, you know what I mean, to feel good. I mean, that's literally the simplest way to do it. They're trying to feel good. So that's kind of what pushes people more into what would end up being heroin. And then years later, they would figure out different things like fentanyl and then press pills and then put it in everything because they're just slowly, you know what I mean, changing with the times, trying to figure out new ways to get the high.
Hmm.
That's totally what happened to me. I mean, for me, I was taking pain pills every day. I met a friend of mine and he said, "Hey, I use heroin." And I was like, "Well, I could never use heroin because I would never touch a needle, right, Patrick? Like, I can't do that kind of stuff." And I've said that plenty of times in my life, right? Like, I'll never do
I'll
this
never
thing.
do that.
Yeah. I've said it that I'd never be homeless. I'd never do this or that. There's a million things that I said the lines that I wouldn't cross. And this one right here, I felt like it was a huge one, right? Because if I was to ever use a needle one day, like I would be like, I felt like that was the Bible. I was like, what more could happen to me besides die or get locked up for an extremely long time? A friend of mine, he said, "Well, that's okay. You don't have to use a needle and you can smoke it." I'm totally okay with smoking things. And I would try heroin for the first time, and it probably wasn't even 2 weeks later I was on the needle. And after I got on that, I would never ever use drugs a different way ever again in my life. Somewhere around this time, I'd end up getting a DWI. So I'd end up having a DUI and a DWI. This would result in me losing my license for 10 years.
How
Once I
close together was that with your DUI?
I was like I said, I was 17, 18, and I think I got my DWI whenever I was 23. And they would end up taking my vehicle from me, and I ended up, like, in a jail in South Carolina, York County, and, this is how bad off I was. I mean, I woke up in that jail, and I had no idea what happened, and I've been locked up quite a few times by this point in my life, but I'd never been to this jail. I mean, I had to wake up and ask around and figure out I was in a different state. You know what I mean? I was like, what am I doing here? This doesn't make any sense."
Wow.
And I would find myself in this situation so often. I was locked up in that jail on a $1,000 bond. So hypothetically, like you could find a bondsman to get you out for like maybe 100 to $500, usually like 10%, but on the lower ones, they'll ask for a little bit more to make it worth it. Nobody in my life would come and pay that money to get me out. And if I had the money in my account, I still needed somebody else to kind of co-sign for me, and nobody would be willing to do that for me. And not because they didn't love me, but because even though jail is a horrible place and it's extremely traumatic, they knew that I was safer in there than I was outside. So like, and like I said, my parents, like, they're not soft. You know what I mean? They didn't live a soft life and they seen the like kind of life that I was living at this point, and they were like, "Yo, you're out of control." You know what I mean? And they got in a lot of trouble themselves, but they looked at me and they were like, always waiting for a phone call that I got hurt, that I died, something like that. I just put them through that trauma for many, many years. And I would end up going in and out of jail, man. One time, mental health got really bad. I'd end up standing on like the edge of this bridge and I stopped all the traffic both ways. I'm standing on a bridge talking about I'm going to jump off and stuff like that. And finally, they coaxed me down off this bridge and I showed back up at my dad's house. and there was police waiting there for me, and they said, "We're gonna take you to detox." And I don't even know what that word means right now, Patrick. I was like, "Detox? What are you talking about?" Like, I mean, the police are finna take me somewhere, it's not jail. I'm like, I don't even understand, like, what's going on right now. So they said, "There's no charges, you go to detox, you can smoke cigarettes there, or we're gonna take you to jail." So pretty obvious what I'm gonna choose here, right? We're just gonna go to detox, whatever it is. And whenever I went into this detox, it's called IVC, involuntarily committed. Pretty much anyone that you feel like is like a danger to themselves, you can go up to the magistrate, explain to them what's going on, you give them a written testimony, turn it back into him. If he improves it, the police will come and pick that person up and mandate that they go for treatment, whether it's their mental health or addiction or something like that. As long, if you can give them a testimony and then you swear on it and that they're a danger to themselves or others, you can be IVC to a facility of some kind. And that's what they got me with. And I definitely qualified. So whenever I got in there, I really kind of learned about recovery for the first time. All my life, I knew that I was doing something that was bad for me. I'm taking drugs, I'm drinking alcohol, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm doing something. I thought the only thing that I would ever have to do to get sober was to literally do less. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Like, I didn't have to do any work. I didn't have to do this or that or go do this thing. I just have to stop doing this. I thought all I had to do was just remove the alcohol and drugs from me somehow, and that my entire life would get better. But I went into this detox, I went into certain kind of like evidence-based classes and groups like relapse prevention, early recovery. I met Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous at this time. And they taught me that even if I did remove alcohol and drugs, and which I literally did sometimes I would make it a week or 2 weeks sober, there was still a hole that was left in my life. And if I didn't fill that with something, the alcohol and drugs would always come back in and try to fill that void that I had in my life. So I was really blessed to be taken into that detox because it really did teach me a lot about recovery and get me started on my journey. I would go in and out for a while. I would start going to rehabs and stuff like that. This like really broadened my mind more. The first rehab I ever went to, I got involved with Alcoholics Anonymous, went through all the 12 steps there, got a sponsor, got me about like maybe 9 months sober. And then I would get out of the program, started living on Oxford House, got the girlfriend, got a job, got really busy, and then all of a sudden I kind of forget about the things that helped me get to the point where I was. And then you see me at the door, Alcoholics Anonymous, like, I appreciate y'all. Thanks for everything, Patrick. Thanks for healing me, Patrick.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
see you
out.
there.
I'm out.
Yeah, so I'm out. And I guess, I mean, even and the addictive mindset comes back so fast. When I got caught at that Oxford House, they said, "Hey, man, we love you." And I was the president of the Oxford House, and I was stealing money from them and everything. They were like, "We'll let you pay it back. We love you. We want you to stay and continue being president. Just go to detox for a week and then come back and leave all your stuff here, and it's all good." And what do you think I did?
Didn't come back.
I was gone. I left. I told them I was going to detox, and they probably a week later, I didn't show up. I guess my TV's still there. It's been 10 years. I guess my stuff probably still sitting in the house to this day. But that's how quick it was. Like I had 9 months of recovery, and it started feeling like a dream, like I was a new person. But as soon as I crossed that line again, I mean, it was back. Like we were right back in it. Like I never ever left. My mindset, like it felt like it didn't change at all. And that's just a testament to a lot of people that's in recovery. We always say, like, I can just do it one time. I can just do it on the weekends. If I'm addicted to drugs, now I'm only gonna drink. Now I'm only gonna smoke marijuana, like all these different compromises
Or if
that
it gets bad, I can quit tomorrow.
yeah. Yeah. And I even got to the point where I was addicted to the whole recovery process. I would get good 6, 9 months. I'd fall off, go get high 2 weeks, 2 months. Detox, rehab, halfway house, do it all over again. And I went through that cycle so many times over like maybe like 8 years. Like I said, I've been in recovery. Maybe I don't know. I might need to add some years to it. It might be 9 or 10 now. I don't know. I have to count them up a little more carefully. And for me, I went in and out for such a long time. I mean, I was in bad shape. I had like some health complications. I was like 120 pounds. I was getting older, not as resilient as I was. I wasn't bouncing back quite as well. And finally, I kind of just, I said, this is it for me. I really just kind of want to get out of where I was. I was living in the Gastonia, Charlotte area at the time. I finally said that I was going to get sober. I went and stole a couple things, pawned them off, and I ran off to Black Mountain where I went to the ADAC Center. And I've been there before, but usually I would just kind of go to the place and then go back home and try to live my life there. But I said, no, I'm just going to stay here now and just forget all of my life that I had behind. For like 3 years, I didn't communicate with my family. My first 3 years here in the Asheville area in Western North Carolina, I just didn't communicate with anybody and I just stayed to myself, right? Just focused on myself and worked up here. And things started to really kind of take off for me a little bit. I was able to stay sober for quite a long time. It helped a lot. It helped a lot to move, to change my environment. But I always say this to people: if you move, it's going to help. It's a great thing. It really can help you a lot in your recovery. But if you think that that's the only thing you have to do, then you're making a mistake, right? Eventually, I'm gonna find someone with alcohol and drugs again. Everywhere that I go, I take myself with me. So for me, the best thing that started happening to me in Asheville was the fact that I didn't have anybody here and I wasn't really wanting to speak to my family or anyone else from home. I had to build new relationships, right? And I had to build these new relationships where these people only knew the sober version of me. So they didn't really know, like, who I was in the past. They didn't have any preconceived notions. Like, they just knew the sober me. They knew I was working towards something, and it put me in a position where I had to ask for help. Because for me, I struggle with a lot of pride that a man shouldn't have to ask for help with all kind of things. And you got to understand, like, I didn't have no money. I didn't have no job skills. I had no education. I barely graduated high school. I had no driver's license, no car. I had nothing. Obviously, it took some help. I had to ask for a ride here and there and stuff like that. And that's probably the biggest thing that started changing it for me was just kind of like having that intentional community of people who just genuinely wanted the best for me, but didn't want anything in return. Before that, everyone that I hung out with, especially in my addiction, everybody played a role, right? Like Patrick, he's got a car, and Will knows the guy with the drugs, and this person over here has $80, and this person, you know what I mean? We all came together. We probably didn't even like each other. You know what I mean? But we
But yeah,
all
the common interest.
yeah, we probably didn't even like each other. We were all just using each other. So whenever I got here in Asheville, it kind of put me in a position where I had to just genuinely ask people for help, even though it hurt me because I felt like I had nothing to offer, right? But that's kind of the surrender that the program talks about, the surrender that the word talks about. Because if we're leaning on our own understanding and our own devices and stuff like that, it can only take us so far. You know what I mean? We're limited in this flesh. We're limited as human beings. We're social creatures. We're supposed to be together and have a community. And whenever I moved up here, it really put me in a position where I had to embrace that. And that's just what it took for me. If you're in recovery, I mean, you can surrender on your own. But for me, I mean, I had to be beat into submission by life over and over and over and over again. Um, but thank God, by the grace of God, there goes I. I was able to survive it and I learned lessons from it. Uh, I worked a lot here in Asheville. I did different things like restaurant work. I ended up doing like fine dining. I was making good money and stuff like that, working at these places downtown. And I didn't even work a whole lot of hours, right? Had me a nice little house that I was renting with some friends. But like, even though I was sober, I really wasn't having that psyche change yet. Like, I didn't really have Christ in my life. I would have told you I was a believer. Like, I believed in Jesus. When I grew up, I was going to church and stuff like that. I would go every now and again. You know what I mean? Maybe like 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. But I didn't take it home with me. It did not affect my life. I did not pray. I didn't do anything that the Bible commanded me to do. But when I was living in this house, renting it with some of my friends, I was kind of just like, I was becoming agitated and restless because I just felt like my life wasn't going anywhere, that I wasn't proud of like where I was. Like, I got sober and all it was eat, sleep, watch TV, go to work. And that's like all I did. Wasn't going to meetings that much because it had been a couple years. And for me, it sounds cliche. I literally looked in the mirror one day and I said, I'm sick. And this is just how it worked for me, right? I looked in the mirror and I just said, I'm sick and tired of being a loser. Like, I can't stand the way I feel and the way I live. You know what I mean? I didn't have a driver's license for 10 years. It was time for me to get them back, but I just couldn't get up and go do it. You know what I mean? It was like overwhelming because I go to the DMV, and I got to talk to South Carolina, and I got to drive all the way to Charlotte and get some things taken care of. Oh wait, I can't drive to Charlotte because I don't have a driver's license or a car, and I just was like stuck. And I had like these excuses for all these things that I had to get better in my life. And I looked in the mirror that day. I said, I'm going to start taking God seriously, my recovery seriously, and my health seriously. And just like that, like overnight, I made like some crazy changes in my life. At that time, I was on MAT, and that's a part of my story. I was on MAT for like 2.5 years. So I took a medicine called Suboxone, which is for people that don't know, there's a lot of what's the word, stigma to it, because basically Suboxone is a controlled substance, and whenever you use it, it is created to make your brain think that you're getting high. That way you don't crave it or anything like that. And it also has a blocker in it, so that if I was to try to use opiates or something like that, it wouldn't work. And I was on it for 2.5 years. But just to put it in layman's terms, the way it works is when you take Suboxone and you're prescribed to it, you feel high for 2 or 3 days, and after that, never again. How does that work? I don't really know. It's created in a way where, like, if you take too much, it doesn't work. Like, you can only take 3 a day. So it was really like a miracle drug for me because it helped with the cravings, and it just helped with me mentally for a long time. But I was on it for like 2.5 years. And when I looked in the mirror, I knew like that I didn't need it anymore. You know what I mean? I didn't have the cravings. It had been some years out. And there's some people that will be prescribed to it for the rest of their life, and that's totally okay. But a lot of people can also get off of it, and I knew that that's what God wanted me to do. So, like, and by the way, this is not medical advice. I'm an alcohol and drug counselor now. Like, I got a lot of certifications, and I work in the field. Do not ever do things the way that I did. But overnight, I went into the doctor, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm not taking it anymore. He said, "Do you want me to wean you off? We'll lower the dose over an amount of time, and and we'll monitor you and make sure that everything's all right." And I said, "No, this is not medical advice. Please don't do anything that I did whenever I was growing up, right? But this one in particular, I would recommend to do what the doctor says, but this is just how it works for me. I used to smoke cigarettes, nicotine at the time, completely cold turkey overnight with that as well.
And
Um,
this is all at the same time.
Started working out. Patrick, I started drinking water at this time. Before this, I drank a 2 liter of soda and ate frozen Totino's
Started drinking water.
every single day, bro. I never drank water. I would just drink Gatorade. It had to be like loaded with sugar and stuff like that. And like I said, I was still only 120 pounds at this time. And all I would intake was just sugar and junk. Like, I don't know how I was living, but it wasn't right, right?
Yeah.
So started changing my diet, started working out a little bit, and this stuff, like, it really kind of like, if I probably shouldn't have done it all at once, because I remember I went into my job one day and they said, "You seem like you're irritable, like something's different, and we don't want you to work here anymore." And this is a job in Asheville, downtown Asheville. They're totally sweet, totally hip to recovery, mental health, stuff like that. I could have came to them that day, Patrick, and said, "Oh, well, I just went off my medication and I quit smoking cigarettes at the same time. It's been like 2 weeks. I'm doing a lot of lifestyle changes and it's been affecting me mentally." And I'm 99% sure they'd have let me keep my job that day. And but I wasn't happy. You know what I mean? I wasn't happy with what I was doing. And I said, "I understand why y'all are doing this. I thank you for the opportunity and I appreciate everything that y'all did for me." And I just walked out of there. Like I said, I was renting a house at the time, really needed the money to pay for it. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just felt led to do that. You know what I mean? And I walked out of there. Maybe like a week later, I talked to a friend of mine, and I said, "Man, I just lost my job, and I'm trying to do all these good things. I just started going back to church and different stuff like that, and I feel like it's not working out for me." You know what I mean? I'm like waiting to see the positive change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm waiting to get the benefits from the changes here. And he said, "Well, look, I'll come and talk to you." He took me out to a restaurant. We sat down and ate, and I told him, "I really wish that I could do something where I help people, but I don't have any, I don't have any skills. You know what I mean? I barely graduated high school. I'm not a professional. I don't know what I would be able to do." And I didn't even know this at all. But my friend, he said, "Well, I just became the director of an alcohol and drug program called the Costello House. And I'll take you down there to meet the manager. And if he likes you, I'll give you a job there." And I was like, Okay." I mean, I just showed up like impromptu. I go to do this job interview. I haven't, no resume. I got no job application. I just told this dude I got fired from waiting tables. He's bringing me into like what I would say is my dream job. I got shorts on, Patrick. I got flip flops. I mean, you would think I'm not about to land this.
Just for success, Will. That's what you were.
I went in there though. I just told him, I was like, look, I'm so passionate about this. I know that it's what God's called me to do. And if y'all give me a chance here, I'll educate myself and I'll work hard. And if you give me a chance, I just promise you know what I mean? It was like a movie. Like, if you just give me a chance, I promise I won't. What's that movie, Will Smith? You know what I mean? Where he's trying to be a broker. He's
Yeah,
like,
the
"Give me
pursuit of
a chance."
happiness.
I was like,
Yeah.
dude, just give me a chance, let me in. And for some reason, those crazy people hired me. Right. And by God's grace, I'm still there to this day. I mean,
And how many years has that been?
it's been 3.5 years that more than 3.5 years that I've been working there. So I rose up to the ranks there. When I was there, I got my peer support specialist certification. I became a certified community health worker. I had to do a bunch of classes and stuff to get those. I was able to get my driver's license back, got a car back after 10 years. And it wasn't easy. It cost a lot of money. I had to run all around the state, different states. For a year, I drove
They
around
don't make it
Louisiana.
easy.
Nah, no, everybody gotta get paid, and for a year, I had to pay, for the breathalyzer in my car, like, blowing to get it crunk up. Uh, One time, I mean, and it's brutal, dude, like, one time I locked myself out of my car, I caught COVID, I took a shot of Dayquil, and I blew into the thing. I was under the understanding NyQuil had alcohol, Dayquil doesn't. They do, they both have a tiny amount. Locked me out of the car for 20 minutes. I didn't fail, like, they can tell, like, I wasn't under the influence, but the machine can tell, like, "Hey, something's up." Locked me out of my car. And you know, this it was like wintertime, bro. You know, imagine right now you're sitting outside, it's 35 degrees, you can't crank the car, turn the heat on, and you gotta wait like 20 minutes, 15 minutes for this thing to restart and take the test. And you gotta wait on it too. Like if you miss that test, then you fail. You know what I mean? So like I can't just go do something else for a little bit. I gotta be here when it's ready.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so crazy things that it put me through. And this is a guy who hadn't had drink in years. You know what I mean? And the machine just gave me so much trouble. It used to kill the battery in my car. Uh, uh, I would end up getting, I would start my alcohol and drug counselor certification. I probably passed the test like less than a year ago, right? So I passed the test and now I'm a alcohol and drug counselor intern. And I'll train doing that for a couple more years before I become fully certified. Now I go to school at AB Tech for social and human services. So that basically just means social work. And just excited to get my first degree. You know what I mean? God willing, and it's going good. I mean, I've got great grades in school and stuff like that. And it's really just a testament to the transformation of that God's put me through because I never thought that I was capable of anything. Like Patrick, I can't even write in cursive. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that I thought that just wasn't going to be possible for me. But whenever I surrendered to God, I mean, things started happening for me like so quickly. And for me, like celebrate recovery is, Jesus Christ is what? And at first, celebrate recovery was my how. You know what I mean? That's how I got to Jesus. That's how I worship. Because when I first got to celebrate recovery, like I didn't attend church regularly. You know what I mean? I didn't do much when it comes to like practicing my faith, but celebrate recovery kind of opened that door for me. And now, I go to all kind of like church related meetings throughout the week. I'm a member, a member of a church now. And not only that, I have a great relationship with multiple churches all over. I mean, some of my best friends are pastors. I mean, who would have thought that that would happen to me? That Will just like, has pastors and stuff like that on speed dial that talk to him, that pour into him and stuff like that. Before, I had a lawyer on speed dial. You know what I mean? Like, mad different.
Bale's mouth.
Yeah, they were extremely familiar with me. So that's a little bit pretty much about my story. Besides that, the only thing I could touch on is like I do a lot to like stay involved with my community. I got a wonderful sponsor in Celebrate Recovery, and I still talk to my old sponsor. I got a sponsor in Narcotics Anonymous. I talked to him. I probably messaged him a couple of days ago. And my sponsor from Alcoholics Anonymous from all those years ago in Charlotte. I still talk to him. So I got like 3 different sponsors, a lot of people in my life that are my great friends that call and check on me and stuff like that. And I just fill my day with like healthy activities. Like that's why I like to go to the gym as much as I do because the gym, I mean, it feels good to be in good shape, and it feels good to like look a little bit better and have confidence in yourself. But it's really like for me, the best part, what I've learned, and I didn't even know this when I was getting into it, is the discipline that comes with it. It improves your ability to schedule and make things happen. It
Follow through. Yeah.
gives you more energy throughout the day. And it just gives you like it was kind of the exact opposite of what I learned in addiction. Because in addiction, when I was looking for my results, it was always about instant gratification. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So for me, like it was literally I pressed a button, I feel good right now. You know, whenever you're addicted and you need money on a daily basis, you can't work for a week or 2 weeks and then wait for your paycheck. You gotta do something that gives you money. You do something that day, you get the money that day, you get high and you drink that day. And like all that mattered was that one day. The gym really taught me the value of delayed gratification. Like I work today, I work, and I work a long time on different projects, different things, whether it's school or the gym or this thing or that thing. And then later on down the line, you get a huge payoff. You know what I mean? This is like natural dopamine, a natural high whenever you finally get that accomplishment after you've worked for a long time. And I think that's really the most valuable thing that I got out of being so involved with the gym because it really taught me that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very progressive. It's not linear.
Mhm,
It's moving from one thing to the next. You're building upon each day that you go.
mhm,
Yeah. I see that too.
yeah. And it's and by the way, like I'm still open to you got to hit the gym one time.
We do, man. Josh Brown has been on me too, because him and I had a date scheduled, but I had to back out because I had some real estate stuff coming up. Part of it, dude. And I would love to get a lift in for sure.
Yeah. And I'm pretty much there. Like, you know, when it's about 4, 5, 6 p.m., just about every day, I'm usually there unless there's a incredible snowstorm come through, which happens pretty often, it seems like now, or at least the threat of it.
The threat of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
But yeah, I'm there all the time, man. And Josh is the man. I seen him at the gym before. We've never lifted together, but sometimes I run into him. My friend, I mean, he goes so hard in there. I mean, it don't make any sense to me because I see him at 3 different gyms in a week. And I'm like, why are you paying for 3 different memberships, my guy? And but you know what I mean? He's committed to it. And he says it helps because it's always a spot for me to jump into.
Yeah, and I mean, each gym offers a little something different. I mean,
Mhm.
like I just have the YMCA, but there's different YMCA's that offer different things too. But thankfully, we're located down here by Biltmore Park, so the Rooter Y has the majority of what I need. And outside of that, man, I mean, I grew up playing soccer too, so if I'm ever looking to get out and just get in my head and kind of burn through some fuel, is I'll hit the trail and I'll go running on the trail. It's a really great way for me to kind of get dialed in, get in God's creation, and just kind of refocus and realign, especially when, mental health stuff does still come up. Life is not easy, things get more expensive. Life doesn't necessarily get any easier as you get older. You just learn how to deal with it more effectively. And I think that's the number one thing that sobriety has taught me is just kind of, what you said about the gym and how that has changed your vision of it is it you don't go from the linear actions of just going from one thing to the next, but everything becomes progressive, and you go from, okay, I did this much weight, I read this many books, I did this many podcasts, I got this many deals locked in under contract. What does next month look like? And then you start building your goals from there. And yeah, I mean, the gym helps with that. But I think all in all, it's just a mentality that you get into, and you just have to find something that helps ignite that spark.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's innate, something I've learned in counseling just about the psyche of men, you know what I mean? Men can be quite dangerous when they don't have a goal that they're working to because we have that innate desire to work hard, to really give our all, and we just have that desire, the conquer the world complex, not like I'm literally gonna go conquer or something like that, but us men, we gotta really have like a goal that we're striving to kind of put it our lives into perspective. Or a lot of times we're gonna direct that energy into something. And it's easy to get into that in today's world because like social media is so addictive. Drugs and alcohol so addictive. Men can easily get addicted to different things like sex and stuff like that. And if we don't have like a goal, like we're gonna like really like zero in on some of these like easy wins. And they're so accessible these
Yeah.
days.
And if you don't build the discipline to be able to and the discernment to understand the difference between those 2, then you'll just commit to the thing that is probably gonna be the easiest, take the least amount of time to be able to get whatever you're looking for, and that's what you'll commit to, is what's easy, what's comfortable, what's convenient, and 9 times out of 10, it's what we just discussed, whether it be, pornography, drugs, alcohol, just pure laziness, gluttony, even. Those things are all super easy to commit to versus, getting up and having a day planned out where you may not want to do all the things on the list, but they're there because they need to be done. And if you do them, it comes with a progressive reward at the end of it of building habits in a really fundamental way.
Yeah. And it's all I mean, it's all scientific. I mean, our brain has like incredible neuroplasticity, like, you know what I mean? When it comes to these habits and being disciplined and stuff like that, I don't know the exact numbers, but if you can do something every single day for like a week, you can start building that pathway into your brain. So, like, when people ask me, like, for example, if they ask me about physical fitness, people all the time are asking me about working out, like, hey, I just got a gym membership. I want to do this and that. I'm like, don't get a membership. What I recommend you do is you wake up every day or you come home from work every day and do 3 sets of 20 push-ups, do some sit-ups, run to the stop sign and back. Well, that only takes 5, 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, "Then you should have no problem doing that every day for a week or 2." And they're like, Okay." And I'm like, "And if you can successfully do these things for a week or 2, then add a little bit more on, increase it by 2 or 3 minutes, add a little bit more, add a little bit more. Because there's so many people, especially like if we're talking about like physical fitness, they go in and they jump in so hard. I get a membership, I go in there and I tear up my chest, I tear up my legs, and then boom, I'm so sore I can't even get up for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And not only that, you gotta work it into your schedule. So if you just jump into the gym like 1 or 2 hours, it's not gonna make sense with your everyday life, especially if you got kids and a job and all these other things that you got committed to. All of a sudden, you're gonna find yourself in a lot of situations where I can't fit this in. But if you slowly grow that thing over time, you can kinda like work it in at different places and figure out what works for you, which a lot of people it's usually like you get up early in the morning or you go immediately after work. I myself, I'm an after work guy. Can't get up that early in the morning, but, yeah, it's just building those pathways and becoming disciplined. It's totally possible for anyone. Like I said, the most important thing I like that I want people to get from my story is that, like, when I was growing up, we did not have a lot of money. You know what I mean? I most of the time had, like, a one-parent household whenever I was growing up. Um I didn't do very well in school. Before I got into my alcohol and drug addiction, I didn't have any job skills. I had no education or anything like that. Had a lot of health problems. Didn't have like financial support whenever I was getting out of rehab or even to go to like a nice rehab. Like I wasn't going to Passages Malibu. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to state funded places, anything that would possibly take me. We're looking for scholarship beds and stuff like that. I mean, and when people see me today, like being a leader in my community, having what people would say is the nice job with my own office and stuff like that. Just know like I came from like absolutely nothing. And it's totally possible for anybody if they could just make that commitment that they really want to change. And like I said, for me, I just looked in the mirror and I said, man, I'm so sick of this. I cannot take it anymore. And another thing that really helped me out was I did it for myself. For a long time, I always wanted to kinda, like, impress people, like, get my parents back on my side, get, like, a girlfriend off my case. I wanted the judge to leave me alone. I wanted to, you know what I mean, keep my job or something like that.
Hmm.
Like, when I moved up here to Asheville and I left everybody alone for 3 years and I worked on myself and I started getting something going on, I finally got those reactions from people that I always wanted. because I wasn't begging for it. I wasn't like, I didn't have to beg my parents to forgive me for all the things that I'd done wrong over the years and stuff like that. I didn't have to beg somebody to like give me my dream job or something like that. When I was doing the right thing and I was just minding my business and people watched me, you know what I mean? They seen that my talk matched my walk and that I had integrity, like I was doing the right thing when nobody was looking. Then people were just like automatically kind of gave me that validation that I always was seeking for like all those years. So it was important to just make sure I was doing it for the right reasons. And family is important. Like you want to get sober to get your kids back, and you want to get sober to get a better relationship with your wife, whatever the case may be. But you really got to make sure that it's something you really, really want to do within yourself so that your kids and your wife can look at you and say, like, wow, this guy right here has really changed. And when they see you do that, like, all for yourself, I mean, my parents got no doubt in what's going on, you know what I mean? And recovery's made me so strong, life still shows up, and I'm able to deal with so many difficult things that happen in my life. Just recently back in November, it's been, what is it, 4 months ago now, just about, that my mom passed away. And for a lot of people, that's a huge reservation, you know what I mean? They're like, "I'll never I'll never use, alcohol and drugs unless this person died," or something like that, and, like, I had, like, a really negative experience. But for me, like, if it wasn't for, like, the intentional community that I built, like, when my mom passed away, I mean, there was just, like, hundreds of people praying for me. So many people called and checked on me every single day, and for me, like, I really had to step up and be a man and, like, take care of all of her funeral arrangements. And when they first called me and they were like, "Hey, do you wanna have the funeral home come pick her up, or do you want us to take her to the hospital morgue?" I was like, I literally just, like, kinda froze and said, "I don't know." You know what I mean? Because I did not know what to say. I was
Yeah.
like, "Am I gonna, like, lose rights to her body if it goes to the hospital? Like, bro, I don't know what's going on right here." And the paramedics just said, "I don't know either." But, my recovery journey built me into a man to where I can still conduct myself and do my very best, even if I don't always know exactly what's going to happen, even if I can't see the finish line, even if it's incredibly hard. And there were some people that have been skeptical about my change, even after all these years. And one of them was my little brother, and he's like a year and a half younger than me. He's not super younger, but you know what I mean. He just seen me as the problem child all the time. My little brother never got in any trouble, but when he seen the way that I conducted myself whenever I was handling my mother's funeral and stuff like that, I could tell, like, he seen it in his eyes. He was like, "Wow, Will's really become a man, and he really changed, and he can really handle things." And recovery, a lot of people think it's about not drinking. Like I said, I thought I just had to stop doing something, but really, it's about dealing with life on life's terms, dealing with our emotions, dealing with these difficult situations in our life without doing something self-destructive. Can mean using alcohol and drugs. That means I don't punch a wall. That means I don't go screaming through the streets with my car and taking turns super fast. And that's really what recovery is all about. It's about I think they call it EQ, right? Like emotional
Your
intelligence,
emotion.
emotional maturity.
Yeah. That's really good, Will. So, I mean, just out of curiosity, what is like you mentioned surrender at the very beginning of this and how basically that was the time that you decided to change, where you completely surrendered yourself. Does that definition change now that you're fully recovered and in this place where you feel or you see all these changes that are positively happening in your life? Like when you surrender now, I mean, are you giving it all in? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. That really does tie into life on life's terms. I would say there was like a moment of like great surrender, right? Like, I gotta think of this thing, like, I'm a numbers guy, I think about it percentages. My life changed a lot whenever I surrendered 80 to 90% of my old styles of thinking, accepting help, letting this thing happen. But even still, after I surrendered 80, 90%, or maybe even 100% at that time, and it lasted for a while. Slowly over time, and it's just a human condition, I become comfortable. I start taking my will back, and I start feeling like I'm qualified and I can handle these things. And there's a lot of times where I have to check myself and surrender again. I have to surrender on a daily basis. I have to surrender to this situation. If I go outside right now and I turn the key in my car and I have an expectation, anytime I have an expectation, I set myself up for being let down. And I turn the key in my car don't start. I mean, I can wig out and get upset and stuff like that, or I can just surrender to that moment and understand that this is a part of life, something that everybody's got to do. And I can just, maybe if I have to take a second to collect myself to pray or something like that. But, anytime that, I don't get out of the car, for me in particular, anytime I get out of the car and I don't kick the tire and I'm over here saying like, bleep this, I can't believe this is happening to me. Everything bad happens to me. If I can just, like, take a second and, like, stay either calm myself down or maybe I stayed calm through the initial situation, that came up and just kinda deal with it in a healthy way,
Mhm.
way that's reasonable, then I have successfully surrendered. Because for me, I struggle with a lot of wanting to be in control, wanting to be the man, getting angry whenever especially, like, if I do everything right and I work super hard and it still don't work out, I get that voice in my head that says, "It's not fair. This isn't fair. It's not fair." So now I'm justified to act out. And in those situations, I gotta take a knee and surrender all the time.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, man. Yeah, no, that's really great perspective to be able to gain from all that. I would say that's probably the greatest thing is getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. I often think about like ice baths and if you, the first time you do it, it just sucks, it hurts. It's really cold, it's super uncomfortable. You have a hard time breathing, but then, after a week of doing it every day, that ice bath just starts slowly getting a little bit more comfortable. You expect the unexpected, or I guess you expect what is to be expected. And you kind of see those things coming and then you start processing it differently. And yeah, it's a tool, just like a muscle that you build. The more you do something, the greater quality it gets done, as long as you're dedicating your focus and time to it, of course. Yeah, doing the hard stuff, man, is just about doing it. And going back again to what you said about your physical fitness, that is a great way to get started. Is just to do those hard things, and slowly you'll start seeing those changes implement throughout your life. So it's really cool, man. What kind of just to kind of transition to the end of this here. Now that you have gone through this, you've learned this life experience. You're here now where you have a lot of responsibility for other people's recovery and health and how they process, what their life has been to where, their life is leading them now. What mission has God really put on your heart the most?
For me, my mission is definitely to help people. And right now I know that it's to help people that struggle with the same kind of demons that I did, the same kind of sin that I did. So, right now I've been put in that position by God to help people that are struggling with alcohol and drug addiction and different kind of addictions as well, and different kind of struggles with their mental health. For me, when I put it in the biblical perspective, I think about the Lord our God, Jesus Christ. He came down here in the body of a man to live a human life. And whenever he did that, he showed us observably how to live. We watch him, we watch the way he talks. We have so many accounts on how he dealt with different situations. It was an example to us. He also spoke a lot. He taught us a lot of different things. And then ultimately, he did that sacrifice where he sacrificed his life. He lived that perfect life and he ate like us. He slept like us just so he could be on the same playing field with us. But I think about, in my case, whenever he had to carry that cross. So he hoisted up that cross and he had to carry it through the streets. He'd already been beaten. Of course, they weren't feeding him right. People were spitting on him in the streets. They tortured him. They mocked him. And Jesus, he had to go through all that pain and he had to go through all that suffering in order to help all of us. He had to do that, you know what I mean? He said, "God, if there's any way I can get out of this, let me know right now and let the cup pass from me." But he had to go through that suffering So whenever read in the book of Matthew that I have to hoist up my own cross daily and deny myself, I think about all that suffering that I went through, all that trauma that I went through as a child, alcohol and drug addiction, the things that it did to my health, all the times that I was locked up, all the different facilities that I was mandated to. I think about all that pain and suffering and how I'm able to use that to help the next person today. So to me, my alcohol and drug addiction, that was like my cross that I had to bear and carry, and I learned a lot from it so that I'm able to help other people today.
It's good, dude. Yeah. Well, just to say, I fully believe in what you have to bring to the table. Not only just obviously to continue on living your life and building your life, making it, into your biggest, highest purpose, but ultimately to continue to lead and shepherd others who may feel lost or may feel confused or may feel just at their wits' end about what life has brought them currently. And a lot of drugs and alcohol, is just a response to trauma, mental health stuff, depression, you know, the thing we talked about as far as, being directed as a man. And, if a man doesn't have a purpose, then we'll find, all these other things to be able to accomplish and whether they're good or bad. But I have faith in, what God's going to continue to do in your life. And I'm excited to continue to watch and see it. Let's definitely get that lift in sometime soon, brother. Um, Obviously, we're coming up on about an hour here, so I did want to somewhat bring this to a close. But is there anything else that you wanted to say to someone about their recovery, about the stigma surrounding it, about anything that you feel is a lie about recovery as you've gone through it and have uncovered your life for what it is today?
Yeah. I just encourage anyone who's in the same position I'm. If you've been recovered from alcohol and drugs, if you have been saved and changed by the power of God, to just always remember that whenever we're helping the next person, to the Bible says, if you catch somebody in a sin, that you should restore them gently. So I just always think that we got to be open minded and kind to the next person that really needs help, because a lot of people are going through things and they're just afraid of like making that initial admission, working that first step, admitting that I'm powerless over my addiction. That's a trick that they do in Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. When they say, "Hey, I'm Will, I'm an addict," it's not because like I'm literally an addict anymore. It's a trick to get you to work the first step over and over again. Because every time you say that, you're admitting
You're
that
admitting
you
it.
are this
Yeah,
thing, right? So it's a trick to work that first step. I love the way that especially the recovery community is in here in Asheville, just doing everything we can to like eliminate that stigma that people are here to help you, and that you know what I mean, just got to be gentle with people that are in recovery at first. And I've met some people, you know what I mean, they're afraid. I remember a couple years ago, I was trying to help out a friend of mine, a young lady she brought to me. She was struggling with alcoholism, but she was a nurse, you know what I mean? And she was afraid to come out because if somebody would figure out that she had a problem with alcoholism, then they would like might take their nursing license away, or the parents might think this, the kids might think this. Just always try to respect that anonymity, especially for people that are new in recovery, because I feel like that'll help like really break down that barrier so that people will come in and really want help, because that's one thing we could do in order to just break down that barrier, because a lot of us that struggle with alcohol and drug addiction have a million excuses. So just try to reduce that stigma and be welcoming and opening to people that are coming in to seek for help. I feel like it'll break down that one barrier, and it's really easy to get somebody in the door at that.
that's good, man. Well, thank you for coming today with honesty, man, and just living the life that you're living now. Super proud of you, and I'm grateful to be able to call you a friend. And I'm glad that there's community leaders out like you out in the community who are there to be able to, again, shepherd people in and just help them continue to form, a life that is worth living. God has created this day for us to be able to take full advantage of and to live to our highest purpose. And you're helping other people do that. So I'm grateful for you, bro. Yeah, man. To anyone else who's listening in the middle of their fight right now, maybe you're exhausted, ashamed, just wondering if you've already ruined too much of your time here. But obviously, by Will's story, you are not beyond help, and this story is not finished. Recovery doesn't start from having everything figured out. It starts when telling the truth just to one person. It starts with asking help. It starts with choosing to stay and just work on yourself each day. If faith is a part of your journey, lean into it. I'm not sure what you believe, and that's all right. Borrow hope from someone who's walked this road before. It doesn't matter how they accomplished it. The fact that they are walking a new life is more than enough. What I want you to learn from this podcast is simple. We don't glorify the fall. We honor the rebuild. We honor the accountability. We honor the discipline, and we honor the quiet, unseen work that it takes to become someone new. William's life is definitely a proof and life testament of restoration and what's possible when you truly commit. And that if you're willing to stay, be teachable, and stay connected, transformation follows. So if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it, send it to a friend who's struggling, and seriously be the bridge for someone else. And until next time, keep choosing life, keep choosing truth, and keep showing up. This is the Sober Broker. We'll see you again soon. Thanks again for your time, Will.
Thank you for having me, Patrick. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.